Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Author by Heavenly Overlord. Translator by NYOIBO Studio. Audio novels by Novelist. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 156, Divine Ice Battle Armor. You're fated to be my stepping stone, and you still dare to resist. Yang Fan's sharp gaze pierced through Su Yu. Su Yu's gaze was calm. His bluish-green ice flame clustered around his fingertips. The extreme cold spread throughout the entire place. In a split second, the ring had misted over and was covered with a dense mist. It was dreamily hazy and looked like a paradise on earth. Glazed ice flame. Su Yu took the lead and attacked. The bluish-green ice flames on his fingertips made a faint glow wafting in the cold mist. In the blink of an eye, it flitted across to quietly strike Yang Fan. Just when it was close to Yang Fan, it suddenly burst into a brilliant ice flame. The 60-foot-high raging flame blazed everywhere in the competition room. The place was plunged into a world of icicles in a flash. The surging cold air with its power to freeze all living things rumbled toward Yang Fan. The powerful 5th-level lower-tier Holy King was frozen into an ice sculpture without the slightest bit of resistance. However, Yang Fan's sharp gaze hid a hint of mockery. Has no one ever told you that fire can control chill? Yang Fan smiled with contempt as both his pupils burned with 2 balls of scarlet fire. Divine Pupils Flames. Growling, Yang Fan's pupils projected 2 beams of weak scarlet flames. Although they looked weak and faint, all the chill disappeared wherever he looked. It was like the ice-cold world was consumed by a raging flame. It had completely shattered. With the scarlet flames penetrating through space, all the mist instantly dissipated. Every icicle had shattered and splashed and was turned into scalding water droplets which spattered everywhere. When faced with the Divine Pupils Flames, Su Yu's most powerful strike had unexpectedly crumbled at the first counterblow. Furthermore, when the flames headed straight for Su Yu, their power was only slightly weakened. Within one move, the stronger of the two was immediately determined. Yang Fan absolutely crushed Su Yu with his ability. It was almost without a doubt that Yang Fan would win this duel. Mo Wu softly sighed. In the end, he was not as resolute as he had been at that time. Su Yu will not be able to embark on the road to the Xuanhuan contest. Previously, Su Yu had emphatically and forcefully pledged an oath in front of the second elder, that no matter how arduous and hard-pressed he would feel, he would use whatever means necessary to enter the ancient Xuanhuan temple and to seize the Phoenix Blood Elixir. Now, he could not even participate in the competition to qualify for a spot. How could he talk about saving Xuanhuan? Unsurprisingly, Su Yu would have to make the most humiliating choice in his life. He either had to watch his beloved woman die in front of him or let his beloved woman become his enemy's woman. How similar was Su Yu's fate to his former master's, Li Guang's, fate? The 4th elder's lips revealed a hint of coldness since Su Yu had refused to accept his request he would become Yang Fan's stepping stone. Several defeated 5th-level Holy Kings felt deep regret for themselves. So, it appeared that Su Yu had no chance of entering the abyss of Wutong in the end. Su Yu's eyes were calm and clear. Up until the 2 beams of scarlet flames came attacking, he still never panicked. That pair of calm and placid eyes reflected the 2 oncoming beams of scarlet flames. When they got close to his body, Su Yu finally moved. He lifted a single finger. Swish. Swish. The divine ice threads streamed out everywhere like a volcanic eruption from the divine ice ring. The countless strands of threads, densely woven, had quick-wittedly wrapped around Su Yu's body on their own. At the same time, they rapidly interlaced and had woven into a layer of airtight surface. On closer examination, they were woven into a suit of battle armor. A helmet, chest plate, and leg armor. An entire suit of armor covered Su Yu's body. The battle armor was crystalline and refracted ice-cold rays of light. Seen from a distance, it looked like a carved crystal battle armor. It was beautiful beyond compare. But, within its beauty, there was dominance and might. The extensions of the shoulder plates were turned up into the shapes of 2 spikes. The chest plate had a carving of 9 dragons, looking like they were soaring to the highest of heavens. Row upon row of armor lamellae emitted an awe-inspiring, astonishing chill. The top of the helmet had a clear engraving of these 2 words, Divine Ice. The puny Su Yu, bolstered by the battle armor, had never looked so tall and mighty till now. He stood tall like he was a crystal god of battle. At this exact moment, the 2 beams of scarlet flames finally struck. With a flash of lightning, they shot straight at Su Yu's face. Su Yu's eyes slowly opened and radiated ice-cold rays through the crystal helmet. Divine Ice Battle Armor, begin. In the middle of his shout, Su Yu's body suddenly erupted in bluish-green raging flames. Before this, what was clearly only a 60 feet tall bluish-green ice flame, had now unexpectedly soared to 70 feet high. The throbbing cold air was 30% stronger than before. The power of his divine artifact, the Divine Ice Ring, had finally come alive after his artifact control technique had reached stage 1 lower class. After countless of years, the silent divine artifact of the Divine Ice Ancient Kingdom had returned to the world. The ice-based attack power of the Divine Ice Battle Armor had been elevated, and at the same time, this greatly strengthened his defense. As it was a divine artifact, this was part of the Divine Ice Ring's power. Swish. As Su Yu raised his palm, his Divine Ice Battle Armor was lifted. The terrible 2 beams of scarlet flames had unexpectedly been seized in midair by Su Yu's right hand. His movement was effortless and fluid. Everyone gasped. Hiss. The terrible scarlet flames had unexpectedly been seized and extinguished. How terrible was the temperature of the bluish-green raging flame to have instantaneously dissolved the terrifying scarlet flames. Even a 5th-level upper-tier Holy King would not dare to seize the flames with his bare hands. Looking at Su Yu again, his Divine Ice Battle Armor was not damaged at all. It was like such terrible scarlet flames had never caused him any harm. It was such a frightening defense and such a terrible chill. Everyone's eyes quaked with horror as they stared at the crystal battle armor on Su Yu. The 3rd Elder and 4th Elder gasped in shock at the same time. A divine artifact. Both Supreme Elders' eyes were ablaze. A divine artifact was something which even the Lixian faction only had a few, and only the Elders could have them. But there were only 1 or 2 people who could control a divine artifact. Divine artifacts were from the ancient times and had previous masters. Those that came afterward in the chain of ownership could not control them. But Su Yu, merely a disciple from outside of the sanctum, held a divine artifact in his hands. Moreover, he could successfully control the divine artifact and unleash the power of this divine artifact. Could it be that the divine artifact in Su Yu's hand had already acknowledged him as its master? If so, could Su Yu be ordered to give up his right as its master and change the acknowledgement of its master to them? The 2 elders betrayed the greed in their hearts at the same time. Mo Wu was taken aback. A divine artifact? He controls a divine artifact. It was like a stone had stirred up 1,000 waves. Su Yu had successfully controlled a divine artifact. He had never done something so shocking. Opposite him was Yang Fan, whose expression was stiff and frozen. He could not believe the scene before his eyes. It was a divine artifact. The divine artifact had effortlessly seized and extinguished the scarlet flames. That body, which was protected by the crystal battle armor, that calm towering figure, had unexpectedly given Yang Fan an enormous amount of pressure at this moment. An oppressive sense of being crushed by a mountain surged within him for the first time. After a long while, the shaking on the ground gradually came to a stop. The 3rd Elder's breathing slightly labored, and his old eyes stared at Su Yu's finger, projecting a terrifying radiance. At this moment, despite everyone being present, he said, "Su Yu, regardless of the outcome of this duel, come with me afterward, I've something to ask you." "Su Yu, I too have something to ask you." The 4th Elder's eyes burned with the greed of his pressing need. If he could control the divine artifact, would his ability be raised to a whole new level? The 2 elders openly coveted his divine ice ring. Standing on the ring, Su Yu looked calm and indifferent as usual. "Wait till I finish this duel, then we'll see." Once he finished speaking, his gaze shot towards Yang Fan from afar. In a flash, he took a single step forward, and a cold air came rolling in like it was accompanying the majestic arrival of a king on earth. Now, it's my turn to make a move. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 157, Imminent Departure. Swish. Su Yu swept 70-foot-high ice flame along. His body was decked out in the divine ice battle armor. With a touch of his toe, a cracking sound was immediately heard on the surface of the blue stone floor. The blue stone floor fractured because he was too powerful. Under the powerful rebounded force, Su Yu shot out like an arrow taking off from a bow. Everyone could barely see his blurred figure making a beeline for Yang Fan. Yang Fan looked exceptionally grave with an anxious and uneasy feeling in his heart. If he was not careful, he could become a stepping stone. With matters coming to a head, Yang Fan had no way to retreat. Divine pupils flames, growled Yang Fan. Both his eyes burned with the scarlet flames once again. They contained extreme heat, as small as the fire beams were. Whoosh! The two beams of flames shot out from his eyes and straight at Su Yu. Su Yu had already darted closer. His huge palm was clenched into a fist. Under the impact of the high speed, the force of his fist swept the ferocious ice flame along. It was like a burning iron ball. Bash! The terrifying scarlet flames were instantly crushed by the iron ball. With all the spark gone, the flames sputtered everywhere. Yang Fan's face finally changed color. He activated his spiritual energy in his right fist and hurriedly forged ahead to meet his opponent. I don't believe I'll lose to you. Tightly clenching his teeth, Yang Fan concentrated his intense spiritual energy in his fist and charged with a powerful force. He clashed with Su Yu with a loud bang. Crack! Both of their fists collided with a muffled sound. Thud! Thud! Yang Fan grunted in pain and he stumbled 3 steps back. The taste of bitter surged up his throat. His spiritual energy in his right fist dispersed while traces of the bluish-green ice flame remained. In contrast, Su Yu stood on the same spot. He had not moved one bit. With this punch, the greater power of the two was determined. Su Yu, you better consider your situation clearly. Yang Fan was increasingly rattled within like he was suddenly falling from a precipice into an infinite abyss. He thought Su Yu was his stepping stone, but the fact was, he turned out to be Su Yu's stepping stone. Therefore, he used the fact that his master was overseeing this to secretly threaten him. My situation is already clear. Su Yu looked calm. My situation is this: if I fight, I will die. If I don't, I will die too. In that case, I may as well fight. Perhaps even if he had attained the qualification to the abyss of Wutong, it would still be difficult to save Xiana. But, if he did not, there would be no hope at all. Since that was the case, it would be better for him to go for broken fight. Even if it meant offending the fourth elder. Whoosh! Once again Su Yu was like an arrow unleashed from the bow and kitted out with his divine ice battle armor to collide with Yang Fan. I'll fight you! Yang Fan roared with rancor and gave it his all to fight Su Yu head-on. Boom! With all his strength, Yang Fan exploded with exceptional combat power. While driving him back at the same time, Su Yu also suffered some minor injuries. The more the two fought, the fiercer they got. Both were risking it all for the last spot. Boom! Bang! Pow! On the ring, only the pitter-patter sounds of the intense collision could be heard. Their figures were indistinct, only 2 blurred shapes could be seen. Sometimes they were separated, sometimes they clashed, and sometimes they were entangled. It was too overwhelming to follow. After several hours, a figure finally flew backward with a huge spray of blood. On a closer look, it was indeed Yang Fan. He was completely covered in ice. His hair and eyebrows were coated with a dense frost. His cheeks were very pale, almost deathly pale like the color of an icicle. He coughed up a large amount of blood from his mouth, fell from the ring, and crashed into the spectator stand. The violent impact caused him to faint on the spot. In comparison, slightly panting, Su Yu was out of breath and severely worn out. Even his divine ice battle armor had some signs of wear and tear, and the battle armor was loosened in many places. But, It was undeniable that Su Yu had won in the end, even though it was a hard-won victory. The fourth elder's blazing eyes gradually subsided. His face was ugly. He had arranged for Su Yu to be the last and to be used by his disciple as his stepping stone. Who knew? Yang Fan was the one who was being reduced to a stepping stone instead. Under normal circumstances, Su Yu's final opponent would most likely be one of the 4 predetermined disciples, or it could even be the 6th-level Holy King, Tang Yuxuan. At that time, Su Yu would lose without a doubt. It was under his arrangement that gave Su Yu the opportunity to trample on his disciple and get the spot. Yang Fan, completely ruined, had already lost the qualification for the top 5 places. The spot that he had prepared for his disciple was forcibly taken by Su Yu. Concealing the chill in the depths of his eyes, the fourth elder gave a forced smile. Congratulations to you all for passing the final assessment. You all have successfully obtained the honor of becoming a garrison member of the Abyss of Wutong. You have 1 day to prepare. You will set off immediately tomorrow. With these words, his gaze swept over to Su Yu. You come with me. I, the elder, have some queries about your performance. The third elder also stood alongside the fourth elder with a glint in his eyes. Unknowingly, the 2 elders had unexpectedly reached a tacit understanding on the sly. Regarding the divine artifact, the divine ice ring with its control technique, the 2 of them would first get their hands on it and then decide to whom it would belong to. Otherwise, once the news was leaked, they might not have a chance with it. But at this time, the expressionless Mo Wu came over with her usual detachment and coolness. My 2 elders, my master has an order. We must return the divine artifact without any delay after the completion of the duels. We have to take our leave now. After she had spoken, her jade-like hand reached out, took hold of Su Yu's hand, and left the competition room straight away. The eyes of the third elder and fourth elder slightly narrowed. Could it be that Su Yu's divine artifact really belonged to that ugly lunatic? Oddly, the 2 elders did not call that into question. It was as if the second elder possessing a divine artifact was the most natural thing in the world. Halfway through their return, they made sure that no one had followed them. Su Yu then slipped his hand out of Mo Wu's delicate and warm palm. Thank you. Su Yu smiled, the palm of his hand still warm from her residual heat. She was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. During crucial moments, she had always revealed her inner warmth. Mo Wu stopped walking and turned around. Her eyes were placid. I'm just following the master's orders, taking care of you a little. There's no need for thanks. Su Yu smiled as before and felt gratitude in his heart. Senior Sister Mo, I will repay you someday. If you have any wish, I am willing to do my best to fulfill it. Su Yu solemnly said. He would never forget anyone who had shown him kindness and grace. To repay me? Mo Wu's beautiful eyes contemplated the distant sky. The quiet time and space, the remote heaven and earth, that empty void was reflected in Mo Wu's eyes. Su Yu suddenly became aware of her loneliness. My wish. Mo Wu softly murmured and then slightly shook her head. You cannot realize it. I will have to achieve it myself and use everything in my life to achieve it. Su Yu was slightly shocked. What type of wish did she have that she would use everything in her life to realize? Exactly what was Mo Wu's inner, secret wish? After returning to the courtyard with her, Su Yu immediately went into seclusion. The ultimate clash just now was rather hard. Even though he had defeated Yang Fan, he also sustained some injuries. However, Su Yu discovered to his surprise, that huge amount of elixir potency that settled within his body had unexpectedly begun to show some results while his blood was inflamed. Whilst nursing his injuries at the same time, Su Yu immediately activated the Sigh of Ice to speed up the elixir potency in his body, circulate in his muscles and blood, improve his physique and absorb the spiritual energy from heaven and earth. Early next morning, there were a few hours left before they had to leave and set off for the Abyss of Wutong. Su Yu slowly opened his eyes and a flash of radiance burst forth. His 4th level upper tier Holy King vigor slowly radiated, and abundant spiritual energy surrounded his body. All his injuries were gone, and his ability had a breakthrough. At the same time, he had a completely new comprehension of all his cultivation techniques. Among the ice cultivation techniques, the amplification of his spiritual energy from the Sire of Ice was now at stage 1 top class. He was only one step away from the rumored stage 2. His icy divine wings were already at stage 1 top class, he just needed a little more maturity to reach stage 2. Then, his icy divine wings would break away from his current, flying wings, form and they would morph into the second form. What form would his icy divine wings be at that point? How amazing would his speed be? The glazed ice flame had required 2 kinds of extreme ice flame to break through to stage 1 upper class, and its formidable power was exceedingly strong. If he wanted to break through to the next layer, he needed to find a new ice flame fusion. Would the formidable power surge again at that time? The incredible moonlit demon eyes was only at stage 1, Su Yu had only cultivated it to stage 1 lower class. He was still a long step away from the upper class. If he could cultivate the upper class, Su Yu would be able to induce hallucinations in strong opponents not higher than him by 3 tiers. It would be extremely useful when the time came. Finally, that remnant piece of the immortal level cultivation technique with 100 or more characters, Su Yu could not crack the profound mystery of its inner meaning. But, Su Yu believed that once he successfully comprehended the 100 or more characters of the immortal level cultivation technique, an extremely formidable power would erupt. With half a day left, Su Yu still had a precious opportunity under his name to enter the depository of Buddhist scriptures. But, after thinking it over repeatedly, Su Yu decided to give it up for the time being. Firstly, in the depository of Buddhist scriptures, there were no legacy-level lightning cultivation techniques that he wanted. Secondly, there were many cultivation techniques already in his hands. Biting off more than he could chew and choosing to cultivate by force would be detrimental to his cultivation. After his return from the abyss of Wutong, he could decide again based on his ability. Just at this time, a junior from the Li family delivered a letter from Zhao Guang. A month ago, Zhao Guang had left the faction and had built a secluded cottage to mourn beside Li Guang's grave. Su Yu felt deeply moved to even have received his letter. He felt comforted after he opened and read his letter. Zhao Guang had already broken through to the Holy King level. At the time of writing, he had been meditating in front of Li Guang's grave. Regarding his presence, although many members of the Li family had opposed, they did not banish him in the end. It was said that it was tacitly approved by Patriarch Li. Zhao Guang had entreated 2 things. The first was to ask Su Yu to wipe away the humiliating smear on their master's name. The second was to scrub away the injustice that their master had suffered so that he could return to the Li family mausoleum and let his soul travel home. Even without Zhao Guang's reminder, Su Yu had not forgotten his oath to avenge and exonerate their master. However, Zhao Guang's last paragraph stopped Su Yu in his tracks. Finally, many thanks to Junior Brother, for sweeping our master's tomb every 7 days and leaving me a medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir each time. Your kindness and grace I, Zhao Guang, will forever keep in mind. But I hope that when Junior Brother comes the next time, you will approach me in person. Why do you insist on coming quietly in the middle of the night? Wait a minute. Su Yu was taken aback. He had previously pledged an oath that if he could not take those 2 people's heads, he would not be able to show his face in front of Li Guang's grave. He had spent the last month in the Wolong snowfield. How would he be able to cross tens of thousands of miles to travel to Li Guang's grave? And to leave the precious medium-grade marrow cleansing elixir for Zhao Guang? It was not Su Yu. It was someone else. Could it be Patriarch Li? Only Patriarch Li would handle that so quietly. But, how was the Li family able to easily procure the medium-grade marrow cleansing elixirs to give to Zhao Guang so frequently? Even if it was Su Yu, he would have to go through many trials before he would be lucky enough to obtain just a bottle of marrow cleansing elixir. The Li family had no such resources. But because it was not Su Yu and not the Li family, Su Yu realized there was another person who was willing to sweep Li Guang's tomb and secretly help his disciple to cultivate. That person must be able to evade the attention of the Li family's many experts and be able to avoid Zhao Guang's detection. His ability must be seriously powerful. At least, his ability must not be beneath Patriarch Li's. But who exactly was that person? Who was the mystery tomb sweeper? The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 158, Heaven's Palm Print. After a short rumination, Suyu still could not solve the Immortal Techniques code. But there was no more time, the imminent departure was here at last. When he arrived at the courtyard, Mo Wu was already waiting outside. Her lofty lovely figure was standing still. Under the weak sunlight, the classical beauty was slender and elegant, she was youthfully beautiful. "Let's go," Mo Wu whispered without turning back. She gracefully walked away to lead the way. As it turned out, she had been waiting for Suyu. Suyu smiled and kept pace with her. His eyes held her beautiful reflection and her delicate fragrance wafted to his nose. When they reached the assembly point outside of the sanctum, 3 other people had already arrived. The 4th elder stole a look at Suyu. He closely examined his fingers and the divine ice ring was no longer there. Slightly sighing on the inside, the 4th elder was somewhat disappointed. In the end, it was still taken back by the 2nd elder. As Suyu had exposed the divine artifact to the world, it would attract others' covetous attention. If the 2nd elder had not taken it back, it was inevitable that Suyu would meet with danger. And now, any chance of that was taken care of. Just at this point, 5 large birds flew in and landed. They were the Lixian faction's distinctive flight transportation. That year, when one of them had descended on the Xuanhuan Island, Suyu could only look up. Now, he could strike and kill one with a flex of his fingers. Although their builds were smaller than that of the eagle which arrived at the Xuanhuan Island, their strengths were not that different. A mere 6 months, Suyu could not help but sigh with regret at the huge disparity between now and before. It's a long trip, so we're using the eagles to travel instead. There are only 5 red eagles, so 5 of you will have to share the 4 eagles, the 4th elder coolly said while he glided onto the one with the largest build. The remaining 4 were up to the 5 disciples to allocate among themselves. It was inevitable that 2 people would have to squeeze together on the same eagle. Though each eagle was not small, it was slightly crowded for 2 people. No one would likely want to share with another person. Swish. Without a word, Suyu reacted very quickly and went towards the nearest one to claim it first. However, just as Suyu was about to climb onto the eagle, a blast of biting cold palm force suddenly came from behind. Although it was not packed with spiritual energy, the momentum of that palm force concealed an extremely strong cold stream. Suyu was blasted off and flew to the side about 3 feet away. Swish. A piercing noise streaked past his side at the first chance. On a closer look, the snatcher was astoundingly Xuanhuan, the 6th-level Holy King. The other 3 people were predetermined disciples, so Xuanhuan would not dare to snatch from him. But Suyu was just like him, they did not have any powerful backers. If he did not snatch from him, who could he snatch from? Get lost. Xuanhuan flexed his fingers and attacked with a strong force that left Suyu with no choice but to fall back a few steps. Feeling slightly angry, Suyu clenched his fists. He wanted to look for another one among the rest of the eagles, but they were all taken. He was the only one left without a ride. The 4th elder's expression was calm, he turned a blind eye to the fighting. Prepare to set off. Whoosh. All the 5 eagles immediately flapped their wings, getting ready to fly. Xuanhuan coldly glanced over to Suyu. You got into the abyss of Wutong by luck. You're not fit to ride with me, Xuanhuan. With those words, he piloted the eagle and soared to the skies. Several other eagles also left in succession. In a blink of an eye, all the eagles were gone. But, just above the ground, Mo Wu's eagle was still hovering in midair. With both eyes closed, Mo Wu was sitting cross-legged in meditation on an eagle's back and her back was facing Suyu. Do you want my invitation to come up? She asked without turning to look at him. Suyu smiled knowingly and swiftly got up. Thank you, Senior Sister Mo. Mo Wu was cold and unresponsive. She piloted the eagle to catch up with the others. Until they had caught up with Tang Yuxuan's eagle, she then slightly opened her pretty eyes and swept her gaze towards Tang Yuxuan. A hint of coldness burst forth in her eye. Need my help to teach him a lesson? No need. It's a problem between us, we can solve it on our own. Someday, I will personally return his favor. Su Yu coldly glanced at Tang Yuxuan and then turned back his gaze. Mo Wu slowly closed her eyes. Whatever, it's up to you. However, a hint of approval flashed in the corner of her eyes. Without any further words, she tended to her own cultivation and ignored Su Yu's presence. Su Yu was grateful and sat crossed-legged to cultivate too. At the Lixian faction, the faction master and several elders had gathered together. Apart from the second elder who was in seclusion and the fourth elder had to oversee the abyss of Wutong, the rest of the elders were present. The Lixian faction master and the others sat around a circular table. There were 4 pitch-black tokens on the table, with the word, Empire, engraved on them. Looking at the 4 tokens, all the higher-ups present wore grave expressions. The atmosphere was heavy. 3 of them were found in the Wolong snowfield, the other one was found in the vast sea. The Lixian faction master's brows tightly knitted in deep contemplation. In the vast sea, the silver-robed guards of the Empire of Darkness snatched our Lixian faction's new disciple entrance. At Wolong Snowfield, the silver-robed guards of the Empire of Darkness plundered our Lixian faction's precious treasures. What does everyone think of this? The Lixian faction master gloomily inquired. The third elder said seriously. In my opinion, it's time to notify the Alliance and inform them of this matter. The tentacles of the Empire of Darkness have already reached the hinterlands of the Lixian faction. We no longer have a way to retreat. Everyone felt nervous. The Empire of Darkness was outlawed in the Zhenlong continent. It was like an invisible blade hanging over everyone's head. If they were provoked, it would be annihilation in an instant. What if the Empire of Darkness decides to seek revenge ahead of time? After all, we killed 4 disciples from the Empire of Darkness. The one found in the vast sea had been killed by an unknown person, so that could still be explained, but the 3 people at Wolong Snowfield were cut down by our faction disciples. The 5th elder felt apprehensive. Everyone was quiet after hearing that. In the end, after a long silence, the faction master spoke again with a sigh. If such a day comes, we have no choice but to give up that disciple. After 10 days, they had already crossed over 100,000 mountains. Traveling millions of miles on the road, the vast expanse was 10 times larger than the Xuanhuan Island. The vastness of the Zhenlong continent was an eye-opener for Su Yu. It was not exactly known whether the Lixian faction was the only power in the Zhenlong continent. Thinking back to the Empire of Darkness, Su Yu slightly shook his head. Outside of the Lixian faction, there might be other powers. It was just not known when comparing both the Lixian faction and Empire of Darkness which one was stronger and which one was weaker. Shriek. Following the eagle's screams, the several eagles finally arrived. They had landed within a misty primeval forest. There were pale and towering ancient trees. The vicissitudes of time had changed the landscape and no one could identify its real terrain from ages ago. But there was an imprint that not even the passage of time could erase. And that was a palm print. Looked down from above, the lush green and densely primeval forest had a colossal palm print 100 miles wide. Where the palm print was, not even a blade of grass grew. Thus, that extraordinary terrifying palm print was easily sighted. The twilight mountains of the Xuanhuan Island, the forbidden grounds of the Fenguang Valley, and the divine ice ancient kingdom in the vast sea all had that terrifying palm print of destruction. But the palm print in front of his eyes was even more terrifying. In terms of its size, it was 10 times bigger than any of the previously seen palm prints. An obscure force which had passed through the eons of time had remained to this day. The eagles shuddered and shrieked. They were hovering high in the air and were afraid to land here. In the middle of that palm print, a crack of 100-mile length ran through it. Striking and startling, it was as if that terrifying heaven's palm print had split the earth open with an earth-shattering crack. This crack was an abyss, the abyss of Wutong. At the bottom of the abyss was the ruins of a civilization. Perhaps the master of that civilization had become aware of the changes in the world and hid everyone underground ahead of time. But unfortunately, they still failed to escape their doom. We have arrived at the abyss of Wutong. We can now land our eagles. The fourth elder shouted, took the lead and swiftly descended. The rest of the people followed. They flew through the air and landed before the rift. Viewed from above, the abyss was a hairline crack. But standing right in front of the rift, they found that their eyes could not see the other side. It was 10 miles wide. It was pitch black inside the abyss. Some of the ferocious beings inside the darkness were also sending out horrible heart-pounding monstrous cries. Draughts of deathly strange smells from within the abyss assaulted their senses. We'll rest here for a night. Tomorrow at dawn, I'll assign you to your units. The fourth elder waved a hand and immediately went to check on the rest of the disciples. Mo Wu stood still with her arms folded before the abyss. Inside the abyss of Wutong, there are still remnants of ancient spells. Hence, there is abundant spiritual energy here. If you have the opportunity, you must strive to join the excavation unit. These words were naturally spoken for Su Yu, who was behind her, to hear. Excavation unit. Su Yu was puzzled. Don't tell me the 100 members of the Abyss of Wutong are divided into many units. Mo Wu lightly nodded with her pointed snow-white chin. There are 3 units. The hauling unit must quietly bring the excavated treasures back to the faction. As you have already seen, the Wolong snowfield was almost destroyed. The support unit arranges the food provisions, tools, and so on. In short, they are the odd jobs members. Finally, the excavation unit enters the abyss to dig in the ruins. The excavation unit is not only near the ancient spells and can absorb the spiritual energy there, but the members also have the chance to unearth treasures and hand them over to the faction to receive ample rewards. If they find a remnant volume of a legacy-level cultivation technique, they are free to enter the depository of Buddhist scriptures once and receive a rare top-grade marrow cleansing elixir. If they find a complete volume of legacy-level cultivation technique, they are free to enter the depository of Buddhist scriptures 3 times and receive Get a Divine Elixir, which only the elders can take. As for an immortal-level cultivation technique, it was only discovered once, and that was Hanji. As you can see, he became the Great Elder's disciple and went on to become the 10th Elder. So, since you have taken the risk in coming here, joining the hauling and support units will make your trip pointless and a waste. It is only useful if you can join the excavation unit. At tomorrow's assignment of units, you must strive for the excavation unit assignment. At the end of her speech, Mo Wu walked toward a camp where a large numbers of disciples were stationed. They were the members of the Abyss of Wutong. The excavation unit. Su Yu stared into the depths of the abyss with deep anticipation. His purpose was to enter the Abyss of Wutong, wasn't it? So, he had to get into the excavation unit. With a light breath, Su Yu went to the camp. However, just as he arrived, he heard a fight. Or more accurately, it was a one-sided assault. Ah! Plop! A figure came flying backward and was smashed right in front of Su Yu. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 159, The Forbidden Ruin. Su Yu's face slightly changed. Without thinking, he reached out and tried to catch the person who was tossed right in front of his face. When he put the person down and took a closer look, Su Yu was slightly taken aback. Senior Brother Wu. It was indeed Wu Qingzhu. While escorting the treasures from the Abyss of Wutong, the entire team was wiped out and he was the only one who escaped. It was Wu Qingzhu who told Su Yu about the Abyss of Wutong's recruitment of members and gave him a way out of his predicament. Su Yu was grateful. He had been too late to thank him, as Wu Qingzhu had already left for the Abyss of Wutong. He never thought that when they met again, much less that it would be Wu Qingzhu who was being beaten. Junior Brother Su, go quickly. Don't invite trouble to yourself. Wu Qingzhu gratefully turned back, though he was shocked to see Su Yu. Su Yu had successfully passed that nearly impossible assessment and had come to the Abyss of Wutong. He urged Su Yu on. Whoosh! Several figures darted out from within the camp and dashed over. The one taking the lead was a boorish youth clad in red. He had squinty eyes with hanging brows and a ferocious face. His ability was rather strong. He was a 5th level upper tier holy king like Yang Fan. Several 5th level lower tier holy kings followed him. The 4 of them charged towards Wu Qingzhu like an angry mob. Who gave you permission to pick him up? Put him down and get lost. The red-clad youth's behavior was rather fierce and harsh. Su Yu relaxed his supporting grip on Wu Qingzhu. Is this place so far away from the faction that the prohibition on fighting in private no longer applies? Why, do you want to stick up for him? The red-clad youth was surprised. He looked at Su Yu and found him unfamiliar. But he realized Su Yu's cultivation base was only that of a 4th level upper-tier holy king, so the red-clad youth sneered. You actually have the nerve to stick up for him. Mind your own business. Scram now before I count to 3. 1. The red-clad youth coolly started counting. Wu Qingzhu's face changed as he tried to block Su Yu. Though he was grateful, he urged Su Yu on. Junior brother Su, quickly go. This is the abyss of Wutong. The faction's rules are relaxed here. You don't want to provoke Lu Haosen because of me. Relaxed rules? That's fantastic. Su Yu moved Wu Qingzhu aside and looked over. I will also count to 3, so scram immediately. 1. Su Yu was serious. This move stumped the fierce Lu Haosen. In the abyss of Wutong, how could someone with such a low cultivation base be so clueless? Suddenly, a 5th level lower tier holy king at Lu Haosen's side seemed to realize something. He quietly whispered in his ear, Senior brother Lu, he looks unfamiliar, can it be? He's a new member who has just arrived today. It is said that they are mostly the elder's predetermined disciples. Lu Haosen's face slightly changed. He was afraid of the consequences. Because of the deaths of 5 members, the rumor was that the faction wanted to add another 5 strong disciples whom they had selected. In addition, they knew early on that some of arriving members were the elders' disciples here for the experience. Their abilities were strong and their statuses were illustrious. How could they afford to offend such people? So, your junior brother Su. I, Lu, am to be blamed for this misunderstanding. Lu Haosen's gaze changed and he immediately looked contrite. How could he have dared to offend an elder's disciple, even just a little bit? Get lost, Su Yu flatly said. He had naturally seen Lu Haosen's fear and realized he had mistaken Su Yu for an elder's disciple. Su Yu despised people who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Yes, yes. Lu Haosen's forehead had a sheen of cold sweat. He left in a panic with the others. Wu Qingzhu was worried instead of relieved. Junior brother Su, you're in big trouble. Lu Haosen is vindictive, he will retaliate. He didn't attack now, he has mistaken your identity. Once he knows the truth, he will double his reprisals against you. It's senior brother who implicated you. With a smile, Su Yu flicked a look at Lu Haosen and the others before he slightly shook his head. Let him be. He asked about the cause of this incident. The cause was still about that escort assignment. Among those who were wiped out, one of them was Lu Haosen's friend. Because all of them had died in combat and only Wu Qingzhu had escaped alive, Lu Haosen was furious and wanted to seek him out to vent to his fury. Junior brother Su, you really came at the wrong time. After the brief exchange, Wu Qingzhu lightly sighed. Su Yu raised his eyebrows. That was the reason. Junior brother Su, you must be here to join the excavation unit. If it was a month ago, junior brother Su might still have a chance to get some credit, but now, Wu Qingzhu said. It turned out that the excavation within the abyss of Wutong had already entered the finishing stages. After decades of excavation, even if there were more ruins in the 100-mile-long abyss of Wutong, they would not survive the years of excavation. At this time, every part of the ruin which could be excavated had already been cleaned out. A month ago, there was a cleanup for the last section of the ruins. The sensational artifact control technique and a remnant piece of an immortal-level cultivation technique were unearthed. But, tragically, the escorting members were intercepted and killed midway. The 2 items had fallen into the hands of the Empire of Darkness. And now, there were no ruins left to excavate. It was not possible for Su Yu to get any credit. What's the point of the faction's assessment to bring us here? Su Yu felt deeply disappointed. After all the trials and tribulations that he had to face, only for him to arrive here and be faced with this. Wu Qingzhu sighed. Although the excavations were finished, there is still a forbidden ruin yet to be unearthed. The faction has dispatched strong disciples here for the forbidden ruin. Su Yu was puzzled. The forbidden ruin, how is it different from the common ruins? As you can see, the common ruins have been thoroughly cleaned up. A special restricted area still exists was because, within the forbidden ruin, there are many dangers. Many ferocious demonic beasts occupy the ruin and dangerous spells also exist there. If the ordinary disciples were to enter, 9 out of 10 will not make it back. Therefore, it has never been excavated. Su Yu deliberated. Since that was the case, why did the elders not personally undertake the task? Aren't they here to keep watch and deal with such dangerous situations? If that was the case, the elders would have already done so. Why would they wait till now? A special spell exists in that forbidden ruin. Anyone higher than the Dragon Realm level 3 will be forced to leave. Thus, none of the elders can enter. Among the elders of the Liaxian faction, the one with the lowest cultivation base was the youngest 10th elder, Han Ji, who was of the Dragon Realm level 4. Even he was unable to enter. Therefore, the lower-level Dragon Realm disciples like Mo Wu had come here. Firstly, it was for their improvement through practice and, secondly, it was to use their power to open the Forbidden Ruin. I see. In that case, within the Forbidden Ruin, there must be many hidden never-seen-before legacies. Su Yu's eyes flashed. Wu Qingzhu nodded seriously. That's right. There was once a disciple who took a risk to venture into it, and he brought out an ancient martial arts stone with traces of wood-based and thunder-based cultivation techniques. According to the elders' conjecture at that time, the traces of techniques were preserved for tens of thousands of years. Even a legacy-level cultivation technique could not achieve that. It was most likely an immortal-level cultivation technique. Therefore, in the Forbidden Ruin, it is possible that an immortal-level cultivation technique still exists. An immortal-level cultivation technique. Furthermore, it was a lightning technique. Su Yu's heart started beating wildly as his eyes narrowed. His heart surged with an uncontrollable desire within. A lightning technique. A rare lightning technique. His purple star thunderbolt had long since been cultivated to its limit, and there had been no new legacy-level cultivation techniques. If he could obtain that immortal-level lightning cultivation technique. Su Yu found it hard to imagine how powerful an immortal-level lightning cultivation technique could be. Not surprisingly, since the fourth elder has brought back the faction's high-level disciples, he will certainly make him enter the Forbidden Ruin to investigate. Wu Qingzhu was a bit envious. Excitement sparkled deep within Su Yu's eyes. If he could get hold of the immortal-level lightning cultivation technique, Su Yu's hopes of charging into the ancient Xianyan temple would be greater. If such a cultivation technique really existed, he must get his hands on it. Early next morning, Su Yu was in high spirits after a day of rest. From the middle of the camp, the sound of a soft call was heard by everyone. The Abyss of Wutong disciples are to assemble now. Swish. Everyone dashed out from within the tents. Su Yu joined the crowd and came to a vast space in the center of the camp. As far as the eye could see, 100 disciples were standing erect in the center. Their abilities were unevenly matched. The weakest ones were 4th-level lower-tier Holy Kings, and the strongest ones were 6th-level Peak Holy Kings. Among them, the 6th-level Holy Kings were the core excavation disciples of the Abyss of Wutong. They were responsible for upholding safety and were indispensable. As for the preparations and hauling, they were mainly assigned to the 4th-level Holy Kings. The fourth elder scanned the crowd, and when his gaze swept past Su Yu, his eyes were cool. The main excavation had already been completed. Everyone's main task is to sweep through the ruin once again and check for any gaps, the fourth elder announced. The Abyss of Wutong disciples had no change in their expressions. They had known that the main excavation was over as early as a month ago. I need to build a new team to go into the remaining Forbidden Ruin, and the team is as follows. The team leader is Mo Wu, the assistant team leaders are Wei Kang and Lan Ling, and the ordinary members will be selected among you. Mo Wu was a strong Dragon Realm level 1 peak. Wei Kang was the 5th Elder's disciple and a strong Dragon Realm level 1 lower tier. Lan Ling was the 6th Elder's disciple and a strong Dragon Realm level 1 lower tier. Mo Wu had the absolute ability to crush anyone present, hence she deserved to be the team leader and no one would refuse to comply. Now you can start to pick your team members. The 4th Elder said, 10 6th Holy Kings are needed to be responsible for assisting the 3 team leaders to eliminate the dangers, and 25th level Holy Kings will carry out the main excavation work. If you want to enroll, you can join now. Rustling. A large group of people joined immediately. All the 9 6th level Holy Kings from the Abyss of Wutong had signed up, and Tang Xuanhuan, who just arrived from the faction, also enlisted. They made up a group of 10 people. 45th level Holy Kings enrolled. 15 of them were 5th level peak Holy Kings, 5th level upper tier Holy Kings numbered more than 20, and the rest were 5th level lower tier Holy Kings. No, there was a 4th level upper tier Holy King. The specified number of excavation workers had somehow been exceeded. The 4th Elder slightly frowned. The 15 5th level peak Holy Kings are all through. The remaining 5 places will be assigned in accordance with the sequence of registration. Whoosh. Without any hesitation, Su Yu had swiftly acted and immediately rushed up to the 4th Elder to put his name down. Ah, you're really fast. Everyone immediately came forward to grab a spot. Soon the last 4 places were completely taken. The 4th Elder coolly glanced at Su Yu with a slight frown. He had run over quickly. But he could not disqualify Su Yu, so he had to tacitly approve. The team is complete. You can get ready to leave. However, just at that moment, a red-clad figure sprang out from the crowd. He glowered at Su Yu with indignation. Elder, I object. How could a 4th level kid take a spot that belonged to us, the 5th level Holy Kings? After a night of inquiries, Lu Haosen had found out that Su Yu was not any elder's disciple but an ordinary disciple. He felt humiliated when he recalled his public apology. A hidden smile flashed across the 4th Elder's lips and he slowly nodded. If your ability can surpass him, you can replace him. Lu Haosen was slightly startled and he immediately flashed an icy look at Su Yu. You took away my spot. You want to get lost on your own, or shall I help you? Su Yu had no other choice but to step forward. You want to challenge me? Challenge. You think you deserve my challenge? Lu Haosen bared his teeth and exposed a row of white teeth. Su Yu slightly frowned. Well, let's quickly get this fight over with. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 160. The Ghost of the Ruin. Lu Haosen was stunned and he immediately grinned. A quick fight? Yes, it will be a quick fight to defeat a piece of trash like you. Swish. Lu Haosen boldly made his move. Underneath his red clothes, his muscle convulsed and gradually expanded with his abundant spiritual energy. His soft body had been transformed into an iron-like physique. He was full of muscles. Popping sounds came from his body and he crackled with a bang. The reverberating sound was actually his bones undergoing astonishing changes. His height grew by more than half. Senior brother Lu's golden transformation mantra has been cultivated to stage 1 top class. Not only he can transform his muscles, he can also change his bones as he has reached the 3rd realm. A junior brother looked envious. Junior brother Lu is conscientious. Although his appearance may be quite unruly, he's quite cautious at the heart. You could learn more from him. A 5th level peak Holy King stood with his arms folded and with admiration in his eyes as he admonished the disciples around him. Everyone agreed. There were many dangers in the Abyss of Wutong. Caution and prudence were essential for survival, and Lu Haosen understood this point extremely well. Therefore, his habit dictated that, even if he despised Su Yu, he would never be careless. In the blink of an eye, Lu Haosen transformed into a 2-foot-high metal giant. The terrible power of his inner strength flooded his entire body, and the surface of his body appeared to have formed a thick layer of blood membrane. Not only could the blood membrane be transformed into a form of offensive force, it could also weaken the opponent's attack as a form of defense. Unexpectedly, Lu Haosan was a master of body refinement. Although I don't know how you got into the abyss of Wutong, it's unfortunate for you to have met me the moment you have arrived. Lu Haosan took a step and the ground slightly quaked. The rocks underneath his feet fractured into several fine lines. And now, I'm going to beat you up so that you will show your true colors. Lu Haosan growled. With his knees slightly bent, he was ready to launch. Bang! The rocks underneath his feet rumbled. His entire person turned into a red blur and he charged straight towards Su Yu. He got closer within that brief instant despite the seemingly long distance. Lu Haosan's humongous right fist, strengthened with the force of his crimson color inner strength, struck with a loud bang. It was powerful and crushing. Su Yu felt as if he was still immortal and a large stone had suddenly fallen on top of his head. His body felt crushed. He found it hard to breathe and his chest felt tight. What a powerful physical force. It was unfortunate that he had met Su Yu. Crackle. Bluish-green ice flames burst up, 60 feet high. The terrible chill immediately caused a cold mist to fill the entire place. Su Yu looked calmly at his opponent's terrible fist while his own right fist rapidly absorbed a large amount of the bluish-green ice flame. Wheezing. The bluish-green ice flame rapidly increased in size and converged within Su Yu's small right fist as it transformed it into a massive fist. His opponent's gigantic fist came attacking. Su Yu slightly turned sideways with his right fist drawn back and then, like a dragon rising from the sea, he suddenly struck with his fist. Boom! Both their fists collided and erupted in an explosion. Su Yu's extreme chill clashed with Lu Haosan's inner strength and the fallout of the collision sprayed everywhere. Thud, thud, thud. Lu Haosan tumbled backward. The corners of his mouth overflowed with traces of blood, his entire right arm was burnt by bluish-green ice flames and had completely turned into an icicle. A look of anguish emerged on his face. His confidence and calm vanished in an instant. Instead, shock and alarm filled his eyes. Was his full strike inferior to his opponent's? He was very aware that Su Yu had held back. Otherwise, that strike would not have just jolted his insides. The Abyss of Wutong disciples gasped. Lu Haosan was defeated. The real shocker is this new kid. When did such a freak emerge from the faction? Another senior disciple lightly gasped. A 4th level upper tier Holy King had defeated a 5th level upper tier Holy King. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. The 4th elder slightly frowned. Su Yu had become stronger in just a few days. He could still easily prevail without the aid of the divine artifact. Even when there was the divine artifact in his last duel with Yang Fan, it was still a hard-won victory for him. Su Yu withdrew his fist and the 60-foot-high ice flame slowly pulled back into his body. He gave Lu Haosan a cool glance and walked away with the departing team without a word. His cold look of indifference made Lu Haosan felt deeply humiliated. He felt the loss of face even more. This fight was indeed fast, but it was Su Yu who easily won. Time is pressing. You can set out now, the 4th elder ordered indifferently. Mo Wu took the lead and quickly led her team down toward the bottom of the Abyss of Wutong. Use your spiritual energy in your eyes to maintain your vision. During their fall, Mo Wu immediately became aware that the abyss was pitch black. No wonder the assessment required a strong eyesight. Everyone activated their spiritual energies and adjusted their vision to adapt to the dark. Only Su Yu's crystalline pupils were flickering as the darkness appeared like daylight to his eyes. Furthermore, Su Yu could even penetrate the dark abyss and see the deep bottom with a glance. The abyss was more than 30 miles deep. If Su Yu's vision had been unable to reach 50 miles, it would have been difficult for him to detect the deep bottom. Everybody, pay attention to the formation. Mo Wu stared at the bottomless dark abyss and coldly commanded them. The 3 team leaders will form a drag angle and lead the way. The 10 6th level Holy Kings shall encircle the 25th level Holy Kings to protect them. We'll slowly advance in a triangular formation. Hearing those words, the team immediately regrouped. Su Yu and the rest of the 5th level Holy Kings were in the center and were swiftly surrounded by the 10 6th level Holy Kings. Every angle had a strong guard. They would be protected at any time if danger struck. In terms of the angle, it just so happened that Tang Yuxuan had inopportunely appeared in Su Yu's direction. When he saw that it was Su Yu, Tang Yuxuan's lips slightly twitched. He was mean and taunting. Aren't you powerful? Do I even need to protect you? Su Yu's expression was calm. If you have the time to mock others, you better pay attention to the surroundings. Be careful, you don't know when something may attack. There's that self-righteousness again. Tang Yuxuan, don't need your reminder. However, Tang Yuxuan's voice had just trailed off when the team leader Mo Wu called out, Tang Yuxuan. Be careful. Screech. Subtle and rapid sounds came in a dense rush from the precipice of the rock wall, aiming for the center of the team. And it just so happened to be the direction that Tang Yuxuan was responsible for. Tang Yuxuan's face changed as he looked over in a fluster. It turned out to be a group of powerful bats. A bat with the lowest cultivation base was a 4th level peak Holy King and the highest was a 5th level upper tier Holy King. There were hundreds. Tang Yuxuan hurriedly responded to the sudden invasion. His 6th level Holy King power erupted like never before. Boom. Plop. Tang Yuxuan was indeed a 6th level Holy King. His ability was profound and unpredictable. He killed a bat with every move he made. When the colony of bats swarmed over, many of them were killed by him. There were only a few bats left. There was not enough time to ward the bats off. 2 of them bypassed him and charged into the pack of 5th level Holy Kings and were strangled to death on the spot. The last 5th level upper tier Holy King bat seized the opportunity to take a bite out of Tang Yuxuan. Tang Yuxuan groaned. There was a soul-stinging pain in his shoulder where he was bitten. Tang Yuxuan killed the last bat in fury, but the pain deep in his soul was slow to dissipate. So, his features were twisted and he was in pain. These are the demonic blood bats. You should be thankful that they are not poisonous. You will only feel the pain, that's all. Mo Wu coldly snorted with barely concealed anger. Mo Wu's phoenix eyes were cool. Pay attention to the surroundings. The next time, you will be beheaded without mercy. Obviously, Tang Yuxuan's carelessness had almost caused losses to the team. Tang Yuxuan swallowed his pain and his heart slightly quivered. He did not feel that Mo Wu was making a joke. Regaining his composure, Tang Yuxuan paid close attention to the surroundings. Though, whenever his gaze swept past Su Yu and Mo Wu, a hint of hidden venom slithered within his eyes. Due to Tang Yuxuan's encounter, many inattentive 6th level Holy Kings quickly braced themselves. They looked at each other because they all felt there was something strange going on. After taking a moment to consider, they decided to voice it out to Mo Wu. Senior Sister Mo, there is a matter I feel like I should tell you. Mo Wu raised her eyebrows slightly. Speak. The demonic blood bats normally live at the bottom of the abyss, they rarely venture out. We are not even down below for less than 1/10 of the distance and we have encountered the demonic blood bats. This almost never happens, unless there are very special circumstances. They had been stationed here for years and knew a lot about the demonic blood bats. Now, the appearance of the demonic blood bats in this section greatly attracted their attention. A vigilant look slipped across Mo Wu's pretty eyes. Even if it was only a coincidence, they had to guard against it. What type of special circumstances? Mo Wu questioned closely. For the demonic blood bats have only left once before, and that was a month ago. The bottom of the abyss had an earthquake and many demonic blood bats fled the abyss in terror. Was there an earthquake in the area a month ago? She had not heard of it before. Could it be that the 4th elder did not report it to the faction? However, an earthquake did not seem significant enough for it to be reported. Curbing her misgivings, Mo Wu insisted, we need to strengthen our security. Swish. They crossed the darkness and encountered a few more colonies of demonic blood bats along the way. The strange phenomenon made Mo Wu and the others even more alert. Finally, they succeeded in their descent to the bottom of the abyss. When their feet stepped onto the ruin, everyone was more vigilant. Stay in your formation. Be highly alert. There will be other dark demonic beasts other than the demonic blood bats from the precipices of the rock walls and bottom. With their strong abilities, we must not be careless. Mo Wu lightly called out and immediately led the team to proceed to the forbidden ruin. Su Yu's brilliant pupils looked through the dark and scanned the bottom. Unfortunately, the bottom of the abyss had twists and turns. His line of sight was blocked by the ruin's rubble. Su Yu could only observe the surroundings within 10 miles. Suddenly, Su Yu was stunned to discover that there was an unexpected flash of a black figure 10 miles away. The figure's speed was very fast, it was beyond the speed of any holy king. A spine-chilling scary energy also surrounded the figure's body. His gaze quickly pursued the figure. They stood in a section of the rubble, looking for something. A moment later, he looked like he had found something and ducked into the ruin. Thump, thump. Su Yu's heart jumped. Was that a man or a demonic beast? Rumor had it that there were human-like demonic beasts in existence. Could it be that the abyss of Wutong also had such peculiar monsters? Su Yu gasped. The figure seemed to have discovered Su Yu's gaze and they thrust out from within the ruin. A pair of eyes produced 2 scarlet rays of light. Only 10 miles away, he stared coldly at Su Yu. His body gave a shudder. Su Yu felt a numbness washed over him as those scarlet ghostly eyes stared at him. End of the chapter. The Divine Nine Dragon will be read in 5 chapters for every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.